I always believed I was his whole world, until I opened a tin box labeled Audrey. Inside were baby photos, a hospital bracelet, and a truth I wasn't supposed to find. Now I'm questioning everything, including the name I've used my entire life. I always thought I was his whole world. Every school pickup, every scraped knee, every late-night cereal dinner, it was always him. Just him. I used to call it our little planet. Just me and Dad, orbiting each other since Mom died. Now I'm not sure I was ever even real to him. Dad's in assisted living now, early onset dementia. He still calls me Pumpkin, and remembers how I take my coffee. But some days his eyes go cloudy like he's watching a movie I'm not in. Last Saturday, I went to clear out the attic of our old house, the one with the cracked shingles and the smell of cedar and dust. I brought gloves, garbage bags, zero expectations. Thought I'd find old tax forms, maybe a dead mouse, maybe the baseball mitt he always swore he'd give to my first kid. Instead, I found a tin box under a pile of water-damaged board games. It was labeled Audrey. Just that. A name. Black marker on rusted metal. I almost didn't open it. It looked sacred in a way. But curiosity is louder than caution when the house is this quiet. Inside were baby photos, not prints but Polaroids. A hospital bracelet. A pale yellow onesie. And a birthday card. To our beautiful daughter Audrey, we love you forever. Mom and Dad. My stomach flipped. The handwriting, I knew it wasn't his. Not the looping, lowercase letters he used on every lunch note he ever packed. This was sharper. Tighter. Feminine. I sat there for 10 minutes holding the card like it might burn me. I thought maybe Audrey was my cousin. Or a neighbor's kid. Or something else. But then I saw the hospital bracelet. Same birth date as mine. Same birth time. Different last name. That's when I felt it. The tiniest shift, like a floorboard creaking under a weight you didn't know was there. I thought I was just tired. But now I know that day meant something else. It was the beginning. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the name on the card, Audrey. Not Nora. Not me. And yet, the baby in the photo had my cheeks. My curls. My ridiculous cowlick. I held that tin box on my lap like it was a bomb. Every piece inside it whispered something I wasn't ready to hear. The bracelet was pink and stiff with age. The tag read, Audrey M. Female, 7 pounds 3 ounces, 3:42 a.m. My exact stats. But that last name Macklin didn't belong to anyone I knew. I drove back to my apartment with the box buckled into the passenger seat like a sleeping child. The next day I asked Dad about it. Casually. As casually as someone can ask, "Hey, do you know who Audrey is?" He blinked. Then smiled. I knew an Audrey in college. Dated her for 2 months. Awful cook. Why? Not the answer I was expecting. Not even close. I tried again. I found a box in the attic. Baby stuff. A hospital bracelet. Says Audrey M. on it. Same birth date as me. His smile faded. A long pause. Then he rubbed his temples the way he does when his mind gets cloudy. Huh, he said. That's strange. That's it. That's all he said. Then he reached for the remote and changed the channel to reruns of Jeopardy. I walked out of there with my heart thudding. Something was off. This wasn't just memory loss. This was deflection. And he had never lied to me. Not once. I started pulling threads. Found an old drawer in the garage with forgotten documents, tax files, library cards, junk mail. Tucked behind a stack of water bills was a library card. Audrey Macklin, age 5. The picture on the back. A laminated square of a little girl with crooked bangs and a gap-toothed smile. That was me. There was also a Polaroid. Loose in a folder marked home repairs. Me on a carousel, maybe age 3. But not with Dad. With a woman I didn't recognize. She had dark auburn hair, freckles, and this sad sort of smile. Like she knew the photo was a goodbye. Who was she? Who took the picture? Why was it buried in a drawer labeled like drywall receipts? I asked my aunt, his sister Cheryl, over the phone that night. She sounded cheerful at first, like always. Until I said, "Do you know who Audrey Macklin is?" There was a pause. Then a stiff inhale. Then her voice, suddenly flat. "Where'd you hear that name?" "From a box in the attic. Hospital bracelet. Pictures. She looks like me." "You shouldn't go digging in the past, Nora." But is it me? You need to let this go. He's sick now. It won't help anything. She hung up. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't call back. Not even on my birthday. That was the first time I felt it. Like the person I was had already been erased once before. Some people say they feel the world shift when a truth hits them. For me, it wasn't a shift. It was a slow collapse. Quiet. Private. Like a ceiling caving in, one dust-coated beam at a time. I stopped eating. Not out of protest, just forgot. I was distracted, combing through town records, digitized archives, forum threads. I typed Audrey Macklin so many times it lost meaning. I couldn't explain what I was looking for. A birth certificate, maybe. A lawsuit. A missing person flyer. What I found was worse. Buried in the county family court records from 1999, sealed, but not sealed well, was a file titled Macklin, Linda versus Macklin, Terry, custody petition, dismissed. Filed 3 months after my 3rd birthday. Address blacked out. One line in the notes read, child left with relative. Petitioner failed to appear. Left. Not placed. Not cared for. Not raised. Left. That same night, I did something I swore I'd never do. I logged into my dad's old email. He'd given me the password months ago, back when his memory was going to handle bills and spam. He never checked it himself. I wasn't proud of it. But I needed answers. Buried in the trash folder were deleted messages, dozens of them. All from one person. Linda M. Subject lines. You promised. She deserves the truth. Tell her before I do. She's asking questions again. Some were angry. Some were pleading. One just said, she looks exactly like Terry did before the drugs. I stopped breathing. My mother. The mother I was told died in a car crash when I was 6. The one dad said never made it to the hospital. Terry. The lie was deeper than I thought. And now it was tangled in names I didn't know how to carry. I ordered the DNA test the next morning. Spat into a tube with shaking hands. Mailed it out like it might explode in the box. While I waited, I started dreaming of that woman on the carousel. The one with my eyes. She kept saying something in the dream, but I never heard the words. Just saw her mouth moving. It took 2 weeks for the results. I opened the email on a Sunday afternoon, sitting cross-legged on my floor, holding my breath. It felt like opening a letter addressed to someone else. Parent/child relationship, not detected. Likely biological match. Linda M. 99.87% probability. Not my aunt. My biological mother's sister. My blood. And dad? No match. No percentage. No shared history in our chromosomes. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there, trying to figure out who I was without him, or if I'd ever really existed at all. 3 days later, I drove to the care home. Didn't tell him I was coming. Didn't bring flowers. He was in the garden, feeding ducks like nothing was broken. I stood there until he noticed me. He smiled. Said, "There's my girl." I sat next to him. Quiet. Then I said, "Who's Audrey?" The smile faltered. His hands started to tremble. And then, he began to cry. Not the quiet single-tear kind. The full-body shaking kind, like a dam finally giving out. He told me everything. Said I showed up on his doorstep with a stuffed bear and no shoes. Said Linda begged him to take me. That Terry was lost in the dark and couldn't care for me anymore. He said he couldn't let them take me into the system. That he loved me too much. That by the time he thought about telling me, it felt too late. You were mine the second I saw you, he said, voice cracked. I know it was a lie, but it was the only truth I had left. I stood up. Walked out. Didn't say a word. I didn't know where I was going. But I stopped waiting. I started walking. Grief doesn't always howl. Sometimes it just hums in the fridge at 3 a.m., in the click of a door that used to creak, in the silence of a phone that no longer rings. I didn't go back to see him. Not for days. Not for weeks. I left the box in my closet, under sweaters I never wore, behind an old Halloween costume from college. But I couldn't unsee the photo on the carousel. Her hand on my shoulder. Her eyes shaped like mine. I started wondering if the laugh I'd always hated was hers. Or if the way I stirred tea counterclockwise came from a woman who never taught me how to hold a spoon. People say you'll get over it, like it's a fever. But there's no thermometer for finding out your identity was edited. Redacted. Rewritten in a font that looked like love. My friends didn't get it. Even the kind ones, the patient ones. They'd say things like, He raised you, right? That's what matters. Or worse. Sounds like he saved you. Saved me from what? The truth? My own name? I tried therapy. Went to 2 sessions and lied through both. Said I was fine too fast. Smiled too wide. Didn't mention the way I would sit in my car for hours outside my old elementary school, trying to remember a childhood that might not have belonged to me. Instead, I poured myself into tasks. Busy became my coping mechanism. I started organizing everything: books by spine color, emails into folders, my closet into before and after. I scrubbed the kitchen floor 3 times one morning. Not because it needed it, but because I couldn't stop picturing that tin box. The lock. The name written in black marker. Audrey. Was she still in there, somewhere inside me? Was I ever her at all? I cleaned out the fridge one night and found a birthday cake slice, freezer burned, a sad little balloon drawn on the bag with Sharpie. Dad used to do that. Every year he'd freeze a piece of cake for later, even though we never touched it. Said it was insurance for joy. I used to laugh at that. Now I just stood there, staring at the freezer light, clutching the bag like it might answer something. It didn't. Eventually, I booked a motel 2 towns over, dusty parking lot, buzzing vending machine, and followed an address I found in one of Linda's old emails. She'd signed it, "Don't come find me, Nora. Just live your life." But I wasn't Nora anymore. Not completely. And I was tired of living a life built on sealed folders and deleted drafts. The house was small. Blue shutters. Wind chimes on the porch. I stood outside for a full 5 minutes before knocking. The woman who opened the door didn't smile. Didn't ask who I was. She just stared. And her eyes, they were mine. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. She stepped aside. Let me in. Her hands were shaking. We sat at her kitchen table like 2 strangers auditioning for the role of family. And then, without a word, she opened a drawer under the sink. Pulled out a folder. Inside. Birthday cards never sent. Crayon drawings, mine. Letters to a judge, never mailed. One said, "She called me Mama yesterday. I wanted to die." Another, "I don't deserve her. But maybe he does." Linda didn't cry until I reached for the drawing. A stick figure, red dress, brown curls. Labeled me and Mama on the horse. That was the carousel. That was her. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice shredded. "I thought you'd hate me." I didn't forgive her. Not yet. Not even close. But I did ask one question. "Where's my mother?" Linda looked down. Then up. Then whispered something I still haven't forgotten. "She's alive. And she's been reading your blog for years." The room tilted. Every word I ever typed about grief, about fatherhood, about identity. She saw it. She read it. She never said a word. I didn't even know how to breathe, let alone what to say next. So I just sat there. And waited. For the next collapse. It took me 4 days to decide what to do. That whole week, I moved like my body wasn't mine, brushing my teeth out of habit, answering emails like a robot, skipping meals without noticing. All while knowing she was watching. Reading my life. My thoughts. My pain. My blog had always been anonymous, no name, no photos. Just stories. Little reflections. I never expected a stranger to follow them religiously. Much less the woman who gave birth to me and never looked back. I reread every post I'd ever made. There was one from 2 years ago, a piece called "The Man Who Raised Me." I'd written about Dad's pancakes. His off-key lullabies. How I missed having a mother but never needed one. I ended it with, "Sometimes love finds you at the doorstep and never lets go." She'd read that. And still said nothing. That was the part that burned. I found her through a soft trail. A comment left on one of my old posts from a user called @CarouselEyes. Something simple. "You write like someone who's loved deeply. Even through loss." I clicked. Her page was empty. Except for one post. A photo from 1989, a blurry carousel horse, a child's curls barely visible at the corner. Caption, "A day I never forgot." Even when I wanted to. It felt like a dare. Or confession. I messaged her. One sentence. "Where were you when I cried for my mom in 1st grade?" She didn't reply for 2 days. When she did, the message was long. Too long. Wound around apologies, justifications, spirals of guilt that all amounted to the same quiet admission. She had watched from a distance. She had seen every birthday post, every poem, every snapshot of grief, and decided not to reach out. "I didn't think I had the right," she wrote. I thought I'd already done enough damage. I didn't answer. I bought a bus ticket. She lived 3 hours away. A sleepy town by the coast. Weathered cottages. Salt in the air. I wore black. Not because I was mourning, because I didn't want to feel visible. I knocked. She opened the door. She was older now. Thin. Lines around her mouth that hadn't been there in the carousel photo. But the eyes were the same. Mine. Hi, she said. Like it was normal. Like we were neighbors. I didn't say hi back. I stepped in. She made tea. Because that's what people do when they don't know how to ask for forgiveness. I used to imagine this 100 different ways, she said. I always thought I'd have to beg. You don't, I said. Because I'm not here for you. I pulled a photo from my pocket, the one from the carousel. Set it on the table. What did you whisper to me that day? I asked. Her eyes welled. I said, remember me. I stared at the steam rising from my cup. Didn't cry. Didn't yell. Just listened to the wind chimes outside and the ocean in the distance. You don't get to be my mother, I said finally. Her hands trembled. I know. But you do get to answer something. I looked up. Calm. Still. Sharp. Why did you let him carry all the weight? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. Because I didn't think he'd keep you. I thought he'd call the police. I thought. You thought wrong, I said. And I'm the one who paid for it. I stood. Left the tea untouched. The photo on the table. She followed me to the door. Didn't reach for me. I missed you every day, she whispered. I paused. Let the silence settle like dust. She said she missed me, I thought. I said nothing. And I walked away. Grief is loud when it starts. Then it becomes background noise, the kind you can almost forget, until it spikes again, sharp and sudden, like a fork in the garbage disposal. After I walked away from her house, everything around me felt quieter. Not peaceful. Just quieter. Like someone had turned down the volume on the world. I didn't tell anyone I'd gone to see her. Not Linda. Not my best friend. Not even my therapist, who kept trying to get me to unpack things I didn't want to carry anymore. Instead, I went home and scrubbed my blog. Post by post. I deleted every trace of the girl who thought she knew where she came from. But the silence didn't last. People started noticing. An old friend texted. Hey, why's your blog gone? You okay? A cousin messaged. Cheryl said you're being weird about some family stuff. You good? Even Dad's nurse called. Said he kept asking where I was. Said he was forgetting my name again. But only when he was upset. There's something uniquely cruel about being expected to forgive while you're still bleeding. Like the wound should close because they need it to. Cheryl sent me a voicemail one night. Her voice all high-pitched concern and thinly veiled guilt. I know it's a lot, honey. But he's not well. Maybe let the past stay buried. Buried. Like I was supposed to just dig a hole and toss in my identity, sprinkle some dirt, and pretend nothing ever happened. Linda called too. Left messages. Told me I was brave. That she was proud. That Mom had no right to hide and watch from the shadows. Then her tone changed. One voicemail hit different. More brittle. I gave her your blog because I thought she needed to see what she lost. But I didn't think she'd still be reading. Maybe this wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry. No one had asked if I wanted to be found. Every person in this story, Dad, Linda, Mom, they all had versions of me in their heads. In their memories. In their guilt. But none of them knew me. Not really. They loved the girl who laughed at ducks, or who drew horses in crayon, or who typed out father-daughter essays in the dark. But no one ever asked how it felt to grow up a lie. To be a borrowed child. A kept secret. I stopped replying to everyone. Turned off my phone for a while. Deleted the blog, not just the posts. Because here's the thing. I don't owe anyone closure. Not my aunt. Not my mother. Not even the man who raised me. I don't owe them peace. I owe myself safety. And sometimes that means shutting the door. Not gently. Not with grace. Just shutting it. I did something quiet that week. Something just for me. I bought a new journal. Not to blog. Not to post. Just to write what only I get to read. First page, I wrote. This story doesn't belong to them anymore. Then I closed it. And locked it in a drawer. The same way I'm learning to lock away things that tried to rewrite me. The world hasn't gotten louder again. But it doesn't need to. Now I'm learning how to listen. Just to myself. Some endings don't come with applause. just a light breeze through a half-open window. And a feeling that something shifted, not loudly, but permanently. I've stopped using the name Nora in new places. Not because I'm running from it. Because I'm learning it was just one part of me, a layer over something older, something unlabeled. I didn't go back to Dad's care home. Not at first. I wrote him a letter, 3 pages, telling him I loved him, and that he broke something I didn't know could break. I didn't mail it. I burned it in the sink. Watched the paper curl into ash and disappear like none of it had ever been real. Instead, I did something else. I went back to the house. The one I grew up in. Still empty, still full of cobwebs and paint chips and memories I no longer trust. I walked room to room. My old bedroom still had the unicorn stickers on the closet door. The attic still smelled like mothballs and summer heat. And then I went back to the drawer. The one in the garage where I first found that photo. The one where home repairs had once meant buried truth. There was a box I hadn't opened before. Taped shut. Labeled only with a single word, barely visible. Terry. My hands were shaking. I sat on the cold concrete floor, cut the tape, and opened it. Inside were journals. Dozens. Some old composition notebooks. Others leather-bound. Each one dated. Each one, hers. The first page of the first notebook said, "For Audrey. In case I never get to explain." And suddenly I couldn't breathe. Because this wasn't just a twist. This wasn't another lie. This was her voice. A woman I never knew. A woman who gave me her eyes and her silence. A woman who, somewhere in this pile of ink and paper, might have told me everything. I didn't open another page. Not yet. I closed the box, stood up, and whispered to the room, "I'm ready now." But just as I turned toward the door, I heard something fall behind me. A single envelope must have slipped from the bottom of the box. It had no stamp, no address, just 3 words in small, careful handwriting. "Don't trust Linda." And that's when I realized the story I thought was over had only just begun.